hat because I got to get my hair done.
You need a haircut, huh?
I do, man.
Oh, man. Okay, so I'm really just going to ask questions about your earlier years, what you used to do back in the day,
Okay.
what you wanted to accomplish, the recreational stuff you used to do, and then compared to what you're doing now, how you see your younger self versus how you see yourself now. Okay. So just a lot of reflection, a lot of fun questions, good conversations is what we're going to do. So drink as you want. I guess we'll start this off by you describing your drink, where it's from, and what it is.
It's a 44 Coke. I don't drink the whole thing. We never get the whole thing done. And as a family, we just share. So Kelly and I and all the kids, they'll ask for the Coke and we'll pass it around. And
very nice.
But we still probably only get about a quarter of the way done before the ice melts.
And then it gets all watery.
And we're done. So,
yes, I get that. Don't judge me if I drink the whole thing then. I enjoy soda. And these drives, I'm drinking a ton of soda. So hopefully I get sponsored by like Swig or something.
There you
That's
go.
the goal.
Absolutely.
And then just gain a ton of weight and just let it all go. That's the goal. All right, so let's talk about Heath. Let's talk about your earlier years back in high school. Did you grow up here in Utah? Or did you grow up somewhere else?
I grew up in Phoenix until I was 13 and then moved to Utah. My father, our family moved up to Utah, to Provo, and he went to BYU and he wanted to be a seminary teacher, work for the Institute program. He had taught early morning seminary as we grew up in Phoenix, Arizona for, 15 some odd years. So it was just kind of in his blood.
Yeah.
So conditions were such that we sold the farm in Arizona and moved up to Provo, and he went to BYU, and so I started my freshman year at Provo High School.
Provo High School. How was that transition? How was the move from Phoenix to Utah?
It was good. I was really in love with the neighborhood that we moved to in Provo and the families. Our ward was different. So the church in Phoenix was a little bit more spread out, and it was half hour from one end to another, 45 minutes, big area. Oof. But then in Provo, our ward consisted of 3 blocks, three rows of streets, or 3 streets. Yeah, and there was maybe 1 or 2 non-members. So absolutely loved that experience. It was cool. But I had gone to kindergarten when I was 4, and so I didn't have. So I was younger when I went to high school, and I had the choice when I moved to Utah to maybe stay with kids my own size and age and repeat 8th grade again.
Yeah.
But decided not to. And my problem with that was, it worked out well, but my problem was I was athletic. I played football and baseball, and I dominated.
Yeah, I did really well
in the youth leagues. And so when I moved up to Provo, though, all the kids that were freshmen, were a year older than me. They had all kind of started hitting their growth spurts. I hadn't. I really didn't grow until after my senior year, because I was 17 when I graduated. And I graduated 5'10", 130.
Ooh,
and so I was still teeny. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But that allowed me to kind of focus in on some other sports. So I got into cross country, running, and wrestled.
This was in high school. You were doing that?
High school, yeah. So my main sports in baseball and football were a little bit more difficult. Basketball, because I didn't have the size anymore and I couldn't compete on that level, and so jumped into other sports: cross country, wrestling, racquetball, and that kind of stuff, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So it was good times.
And so that's the decision to stay back in 8th grade and not move up with you could have moved up. Did that make you nervous at all in regards to sports, or you just felt like, hey, I can compete with these guys, like it's not a problem?
Yeah. A lot of different circumstances, but probably the biggest one was just I was in my deacon's quorum, and a lot of them were moving into becoming freshmen, and so I just decided to stay with them. Had it been different circumstances, I might have stayed back one more year, and then would have had more chances to. But I didn't have my growth spurt really until I had already graduated. So I graduated at 17, joined the military.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Joined the military and went to basic training and then language school. So I went and learned Russian through the military, and then they trained me to be an interrogator.
Oh, whoa! So, that is all news to me. Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
What in the world?
A year and a half later, after I came back from all that training, I had grown from, now I was 19, basically 18 and a half, 19, and I'd grown from 5'10", 130 to 6'2", 165.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Just shot right up.
Just so the growth spurt hit there after everything. And
oh man.
That's where I got my mission call. Got called to Finland.
Okay.
And then, so I'd already learned Russian through the military. Then I got called to Finland and served in Finland for 4 months. And that's when Russia opened up for missionaries. So this was 1990 to 92.
Okay. All right.
So I got a phone call one afternoon. Actually, I was told go to the nearest phone, like stand in Finland and call the mission home. So I was like, oh, what's going on? That was really weird.
Yeah.
So I called him and said, and the mission president said, Elder Thompson, you've been transferred. You've been called to the mission in Russia.
To a different country entirely.
Yeah.
And how'd you feel about that?
Awesome. I mean, I had really kind of joined the military to learn Russian because in the back of my mind, I really kind of felt like I wanted to be prepared to be able to serve a mission in Russia.
Wow, okay.
And so having learned Russian really set me up for it. A lot of different circumstances kind of allowed that to happen. There was a return missionary that lived in the apartment building that I and my companion were in, and he actually worked in the embassy and met a lot with the mission president there in Finland. So he knew that I spoke Russian just because we would interact. And so, of course, with his connections with the mission president and then with the area authorities deciding to let's send some missionaries into Russia, of course, I was high on the list for someone who could go in. And, so there were 6 of us that went to Moscow, and
six missionaries, for
missionaries
that whole mission.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, to start with, we had some missionaries in Vyborg, which is a city just on the Russian border with Finland. And so missionaries have been there for about 3 months, kind of coming across from Finland and going back, to renew visas and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, got moved to Moscow from Finland, and then basically 9 months there. The church, just grew,
just blew up there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kind of an interesting story. So the way it kind of happened, of course, Russians for 70 years didn't have access to the Bible, and they weren't really, it wasn't prohibited, but they didn't really pursue religious activities.
Yeah.
And a returned missionary was working in the U.S. Embassy in Moscow and noticed that there was a terrible problem with alcoholism. And so some of the ladies, Russian women that worked in the embassy in secretarial type jobs and other things, had approached him and just said, Russians like to talk, and almost all of them had husbands that were alcoholics, and they were the ones putting food on the table. Problems.
Yeah.
So he, on his own initiative, decided to start up an Alcoholics Anonymous program for these women and their husbands. But if you're familiar with AA, you need to have belief in a supreme being, and of course these Russians didn't necessarily, and they needed to have scripture. Well, the Bible was banned in Russia at the time, and so he had imported Book of Mormons.
No way.
And he taught the AA group using the Book of Mormon.
The Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
And in their mind, did they realize it was something that was very different? Not necessarily very different, but it's not the Bible, right? So in their mind, they're teaching from the Book of Mormon, or he is. Was there any sort of like, oh, these stories are different?
They didn't.
Weird.
They didn't really even recognize. They just recognize it as Book of Scripture, and it taught about having a relationship with Jesus and with their Heavenly Father and with their Savior, and that was really kind of what the main goal was behind introducing Scripture into their lives.
Yeah.
Long story short, a month later, when we finally entered Russia, there were about 7 women that were ready for baptism.
Ready to go. Oh my goodness. Yeah. That's the prime example of just like ready to harvest.
Totally.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, the field was so white.
That is, there's a lot to unpack here. I've got so many questions that I was holding back. So I wanted to hear what you're saying. Yeah. So let's go back to this. You joined the military. You were trained in being a negotiator. Tell me more about that. What was that like? Do you still feel like you have some of that negotiation and kind of take it into your life now, or
I would
how's that?
imagine that's had, kind of became a part of me. A lot of it was in teaching us questioning tactics. We didn't necessarily use muscle. It was more brain type exercises.
Yeah.
When you're interrogating, you're trying to either catch them in some sort of, I guess, a lie. And by using different questioning techniques, you can kind of get them to understand, hey, listen, I know you're not telling the truth. Do you want me to send letters home to your wife? Do you want me to send, pictures home to your children? Do you want me to let them know that you're okay? Do you want me to give you better food? Do you want me to
I gotcha.
take care of you better here while you're in military prison or whatever? And if you'll be honest and tell the truth, then we can probably hook you up with some of these things. Anyways,
Wow.
long story short, a lot of those techniques were kind of taught to us. I went to interrogator school right after Panama when President Noriega, who was the president of Panama, he was basically, arrested. He had stole, of course, millions and millions and millions from the Panamanian people. And for one reason or another, the U.S. military got involved. And they used some pretty cool techniques. One of them that we learned as interrogators was sleep deprivation and music.
Okay.
So they would blare AC/DC and Black Sabbath and just hard acid
music.
rock on these giant speakers, because he was holed up in his kind of compound.
Yeah.
And the military didn't want to go in risking life.
Yeah.
And they just wanted to arrest Noriega. They didn't want to have to mess with the other people, and so they blasted this music to the point where he couldn't sleep for days. And finally, in a haggard, just completely worn out, he caved. He came out. He caved.
Oh, geez.
But not only that, they would blare lights, extremely bright lights into all the windows, and so no matter how,
there's no sleeping.
Yeah,
no
you could not sleep, and so that was pretty interesting.
That's intense.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And so they used that to good effect.
Did you got to be honest here? Do you use any of your interrogation techniques now against your kids, or have you? Probably not to the extreme, right? But
right, probably not.
No, I'm sure some good learning that you took on that you practice with your kids.
I think in sales, so that's kind of my prime. That's what I do. I'm a financial advisor, a financial planner. Work with insurance and annuities, and I think that some of the skills that I certainly learned as an interrogator played and play today in just my ability to communicate with people, understand where they're coming from. I think understanding human nature. If you can understand human nature, you can do anything, and you can really not only help other people, but you can understand them and then know what they need. And so,
yeah, when you say human nature, are you talking about just like really understanding their story and like where they're coming from and trying to understand their experiences, or what do you mean by that?
Part of it, yeah, part of it. Part of it is also kind of understanding how to communicate more effectively with a person because of the way they're communicating back with me.
Like mirroring, kind of
mirroring a little bit, yeah, doing some mirroring things, and watching body language, and watching voice inflection, and then not only mirroring that back, but giving back the proper tonality so that you can effect some emotion, and help them to catch the vision of what you're trying to say. And so all these things, in certain aspects were taught in the military as an interrogator, or taught on my mission as I learned how to communicate in Russian with the Russians and try to help them. And then certainly throughout my career in sales, these are all.
Yeah, it seems like your whole life has kind of been centered around communicating with people. And it seems like you've kind of almost mastered that, right? Where you know how to talk to somebody from the beginning, interrogation, learning those techniques on your mission, and now in your career now. It seems like it's kind of all been that theme, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think so.
It's kind of a big deal. One question before I did forget about high school. Where did you graduate? I'm assuming Provo, but what year did you graduate?
88.
88.
88.
Is that?
That's our cheer that we would.
What was that?
We would do at the assemblies.
Oh,
You'd yell at your graduation year.
Do you still stay in touch with anyone from high school?
Some, yeah, some. I mean, dang, it's almost 40 years now. Kind of crazy to think. 35 anyways, and
long time.
There are
So
a few around still.
back in high school, and really, I guess those earlier years, right, in the military and your mission, is there something that you wanted to do, like career-wise, that you were like always shooting for? And then compared to how that, like where you're at now, how does that compare?
Yeah, it is different. It's strange how things work out, but I know growing up, I had all the dreams of a policeman, a fireman, a doctor,
Yeah.
and as I would change my mind to different things, a lawyer. My grandfather, my mother's father, Grandpa Nagel, Grant Nagel, he would hear, oh, Heath wants to do this, and so he'd bring me encyclopedia library of medical books.
Oh, well, he'd support you.
Yeah.
Oh, how awesome is that?
And if he found out or he heard that maybe I wanted to get into law, he'd bring me law books, and just very, very supportive. I wanted to be a vet, so he bought me, binders full of animal pictures and descriptions of animals, and just was very supportive. He was a great, great man. And so, yeah, I mean, I went through everything that I changed my mind constantly. But in college, after my mission, I was a poli-sci major. I thought I'd get into politics or something along that line. And
where'd you go to college?
BYU.
BYU, all right.
When I had basically a year after I got back from my mission, I was teaching Sunday school with a group of teenagers in my ward, and one of them asked me if I'd be willing to come. He knew I served in Russia, and if I'd be willing to come help him in his Russian class teach some culture stuff, maybe teach a dance or something about Russian culture. And I, at the time at BYU, was in a folklore or folk dance class. I was taking folk dance, so I was learning these different dances from around the world, the Hungarian hopak and Russian things and whatnot. So that was kind of fun. So I said sure. So I went into his Russian class at high school and taught them some Russian dancing and different things. And
how fun was that?
It was awesome. Yeah, it was fun.
Do you remember any of the dances now?
I could probably do a few.
I can still remember.
Jump around a little bit, but
oh man.
Ultimately, before I finished that story, I went on to ballroom, and I danced on the ballroom team for a couple of years at BYU, and that was, oh man, that was the best thing ever.
Ballroom dance, I didn't know. So you seem to be a very active guy. I mean, I played football with you, and I was astonished with like, wow, this guy's really keeping up. So like, it seems like you're somebody who really just values like, hey, I still want to be active.
That makes me feel good.
Very impressive.
Things have gone downhill fast though since those grandma boys days.
Yeah.
Football, love that though. It was great.
It seems like your kids are pretty active. So, I mean, I've played with your son every once in a while. He shot up. He got really tall. He got kind of get into his body. But
he got big.
Is that something that you taught and instilled in your family?
We all play sports. All play. I mean, we do a lot of playing ourselves. Out in the backyard, basketball court, swimming pool. So
always have something
sports
there, right? Just the opportunity to play.
I'll miss it bad if once my two youngest leave. Maxwell's 10 and Macklin is 11, and they're both very active in basketball now and soccer. So, but anyways, back to that high school. So I taught that Russian class. The teacher at the time approached me afterwards and said, "Hey, I'm leaving on a mission with my husband." This was Sister Jarvis. So Brother Jarvis is a general authority and now, but he was working at BYU at the time, and he was called on a mission to Russia.
Yeah.
So she said, I won't be here next year. You might consider, applying for the job to teach Russian here at Provo High School. Well, I was basically a freshman at BYU, and I thought, oh my gosh, how perfect. And I was also teaching at the MTC, so I taught the Russian missionaries at the MTC at the time.
Wow.
And so I thought, like,
a lot of teaching.
Easy transition, to become a teacher here at Provo High.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a year, and then the administration there said, hey, we'll have some openings here for full-time if you can graduate. And now I was a sophomore at the time, and so I had to condense 2 years in 2 semesters in order to qualify
pressure's on
to get that full-time position.
Yeah.
So I took 26 credits, both of those last 2 winter and fall semesters at BYU, and doubled up everything in that spring term. And I had teachers that were so helpful. They would let me take their classes, and then I would just show up in their office for a half hour to go over the books that they told me to read and to kind of talk through some of the stuff. So really got a lot of help. But anyways, condensed those last 2 years basically in 3/4 of a year, and got my history major, Russian major, secondary ed degree, and went on to get hired at Provo High School. So I taught Russian, U.S. history, coached the soccer teams, head coached with the girls and assisted with the boys, and absolutely loved it. Did
Man.
that for about 6 years.
Active. You were just, that's the story of your life. You're just doing things.
Go, 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 go,
Very
go.
impressive. Has that translated over to your kids? Do you feel like they've kind of followed the same
Oh, that's interesting.
manner that you?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think there's probably a little bit of some vim and vigor in them. I was thinking about this the other day. I think that sometimes we might go in generations. In other words, my grandfather was very driven.
Uh-huh.
This is a story in and of itself. We could have one of these days, but
Yeah.
he came from a polygamous family.
Oh, wow.
His grandfather served in the Mormon battalion when they left Nauvoo, not married, joined the Mormon battalion. The military government paid these men $500 to join.
Uh-huh.
He gave that $500 to some of the members that had crossed over those icy waters
Oh my goodness.
from Nauvoo over into Iowa. Was it Iowa? I think it was Iowa. Anyways, left with the Mormon battalion. About a year and a half later, they were disbanded or released in San Diego, California, after they basically had built some roads for the military from the Midwest all the way to California.
Uh-huh.
Didn't have any military skirmishes, but did run into some. Did get stampeded by wild bulls. So the Texas Longhorns were going through Texas, and that was the only skirmishes they had.
Massive stampede. I would not want to face that.
They did not have any loss of life, but they did have some injuries from that. Anyways, got released and heard about some activities up in Northern California, left and went to Sutter's Mill. Now, are you familiar with what happened at Sutter's Mill?
No, tell me
That
about
was where
that.
the gold rush started. So he was
there.
He was
at that
there.
time.
He was there. One of the first guys that found gold there in the San Francisco area.
Oh my gosh.
In fact, we were driving in that area and we saw signs for Sutter's Mill as we were driving through the foothills of San Francisco. Totally cool. But anyways, he made a fortune, and
so he actually found a lot of gold.
Found a lot of gold.
Wow.
Then he used that to buy up lots of land in San Jose and raise fruits, vegetables, horses, oxen, cows for the miners that were coming. Made another fortune with that. And then Brigham Young used that fortune to really save the church as they were in Utah and in desperate needs of money and capital. And
this is your grandpa.
This is my grandfather's grandfather.
Oh my gosh! So he had a huge hand in.
Huge.
Oh my goodness.
He founded Lehigh and American Fork. He founded Fredonia, which is on the border by the Grand Canyon in northern Arizona and southern Utah. And anyways, Brigham Young knew he had the resources, so he would send him and use his money to send members of the church back to get grist mills and other types of mechanical manufacturing goods out of England, and then sent these supplies throughout the Utah colonies at the time as they were
just building up Utah.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal. So is all this recorded somewhere in journals? Is that how you know this?
It is, yeah, recorded in journals.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Church history.
And church history.
I often think, you think about the Rockefellers, they have generational wealth. Well, this John Conrad Nagel really had created that kind of generational wealth, but instead of passing it down through the generations, he gave it to the church, and built up Zion here in Utah with that wealth. And anyways, lots of stories there. So he then started, because of the polygamist issues, and of course Brigham asked him to take care of other women because he had the resources to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was problems with the government, and so he bought up all the land in Mexico, the Mormon colonies in Juarez and other places. And so they landed and they built communities down there until Pancho Villa and flooding basically had a large group kind of leave that place and come back up to Utah. And then, of course, they couldn't stay together, so he had to send his wives to these different colonies that he had kind of founded. And my grandfather's mother landed in Gilbert, Arizona.
Gilbert, that's where it started.
That's where it started. Yeah, and so that's where my parents met, and of course I was born. But anyways, I was telling the story because he was so entrepreneurial. He had this great vim and vigor and very entrepreneurial in his activities. The next generation, not so much. So my mom and dad, very smart, very more, just astute at doing things, not necessarily entrepreneurial, although they were extremely entrepreneurial. They were very successful in real estate and some other things. My grandfather went on to become one of the largest real estate brokers in all of Arizona.
Whoa.
At the time. This was back in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Wow.
But anyway, so that kind of stuck with me, and I kind of sometimes think that the really action, kind of skips generations, and so I'm a little bit nervous about my kids and that they're just taking different paths. So maybe their kids though will be
the
highfalutin
grandkids
and crazy and wild like myself.
The
but
grandkids.
It's been a good ride.
That's so interesting. So where do you think this comes from? Is this just some internal desire and drive to just be like, I want to go like that? Like, what do you attribute that to? If you could, maybe you can.
That's a good question.
It is what it is.
It could be built in. I know that my grandfather, oftentimes we would, he started me off helping him with some of his real estate, and I would mow the lawns and prepare the, homes for resale as he would flip them. And so he would constantly be talking to me about entrepreneurial endeavors and building businesses and being successful and not working, having a job, I like to call it, and being free.
J-O-B?
Yeah, a job, a job.
Oh, J-O-B. I thought you said J-O-B.
Oh,
okay,
no,
J-O-B.
yeah,
I
job.
gotcha.
You don't want to be stuck in a job.
Yeah, I hear
and
that.
So
you started young. So you were kind of introduced to this younger, and maybe that could have helped with the drive.
Yeah.
So tell me this then. With your younger self and the drive and the really early introduction to work, how do you think your younger self would see you now? Like, how do you think he would react? Like happy? It's like, hey, wow, drive was there and we did it.
I would say it's still a work in progress. I think there's still lots to be done. I think my younger self would be happy that I'm doing what I'm doing. I often refer to Robert Kiyosaki, who is the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant. And one of the favorite things that he put out is that cash flow quadrant, where upper left-hand quadrant, you have a job, but you're beholden to that job. You got to be there 9 to 5. You got a boss telling you what to do and where to be, blah, blah, blah. The best place to be, though, which is what his rich dad was an entrepreneur, which is the lower left-hand quadrant. And but that's just the beginning. And so I've been so excited to be a part of a company. The company that I'm basically an owner in is called Fortis. We're a national financial services company, but our goal is to help others not just be an entrepreneur. We want to help you build a business. And so that's moving up into that upper right-hand quadrant, where as a business owner, now you have a team. Now you're building a business where you're not in it by yourself, and you're not having to duplicate your activities day in and day out to put food on the table. If I were just an entrepreneur, I'd have to go out there and I'd have to make that sale again the next day and do it all myself. And I could build a team around me, but what a Fortis does is, if I can show that I can produce, help other families and write business, and if I can show that I can train others to do the same, then what a Fortis does is it provides me a team. So they'll recruit agents for me and provide me and those agents appointments.
Wow.
And now I have agents all over the country that I override. So as a business owner, that upper right-hand quadrant, that's where you want to be. You want to be in a spot where you have that override potential. You've got residual income. You've got passive income. And it keeps me in the game, because as good as I can help them be successful, the more success I have and the bigger that income can be as you're building a business. Then the goal is to move into the lower right-hand quadrant, which is an investor. Which means you've got enough money to get out of the rat race, and now you can start doing some fun things. Traveling and investing in other things, and real estate and so on and so forth. So
wow. So really building a team and learning how to scale. I think that tends to be a problem with a lot of business owners, where it's like, it's fine. You have like kind of your mom and pop shop, which is good if that's what they want, great. But if you're really getting into those other quadrants, you got to learn how to delegate. You need to learn how to scale. That's where the money is. You can be a little bit more hands-off. Wow, that's impressive. So, I mean, it sounds like you're following that same energy, the entrepreneurial, just getting into those type of businesses and really those type of ventures to get out of what you're saying, the rat race, right?
Yep.
So your kids though, are they following that same pattern somewhat? Are they interested in those kind of that kind of industry?
That's a good question. I think so a little bit. So my oldest, McKinley, is actually my executive assistant.
Oh, nice.
And so she runs, a lot of my day-to-day and distribution of appointments and helping to process applications. And so, but I keep telling her, you've got to stop doing this and become an agent. Get your license.
Get into it.
Because she can make in one sale, which she could do easily because she's so good with people.
She is.
What would take her a month to make just with with a paycheck from me. So I'm constantly pushing that, and she keeps telling me she's getting closer to getting that license. So
nice. Good for
anyways, I've even offered to have her to pay for her to hourly to study for these tests. So hopefully she'll take advantage of that.
Wow, yeah, that's a big opportunity. Not a lot of people get that opportunity.
Yeah, my next daughter, Madison, she's a hairdresser in Springville and does really good there. So again, an entrepreneur, and now we need to help her kind of scale that. And maybe get a shop of her own, and then bring in other people and override that. And her sister coming back off a mission, and we'll get into cosmetology, much like Heather. And do a lot of that stuff. And so we can see at some point where Millie wants to do the same, where the three of them can have a shop and kind of build a business with that. A one-stop shop for those kind of things. And Cade, my son, he's actually an agent with me, just kind of starting off. He's done summer sales for the last 3 summers, and
he's still doing it. He's got to be doing pretty good then, if that's the case.
Well, not now, not this year. He's decided to get into business with me, so he's now licensed and he's running his business with me. So, we're kind of getting the juices flowing in the family.
Yeah. How exciting! You're really setting them up for success, because really, as a father, that's what you want for your kids, right? You just want them to succeed. You provide those tools. But before I forget, we've mentioned your kids, we can't not mention your wife, Kelly. So tell me about the story of how you guys met. How that's, I'm sure there's an interesting story behind that.
I told you that right after my mission, I went and taught at Provo High School, taught that Russian class. Got hired that next year, kind of full-time teaching Russian. Well, not full-time, but I taught 3 or 4 classes throughout the week. Of Russian kids, and it was a daily thing where I'd go in there. But Kelly, my wife now, actually, she was a senior at Provo High School that very first year that I started teaching at Provo High School.
Okay.
And she was a cheerleader and did other things, worked at the office, and so I would see her occasionally. I was one of the announcers at the basketball games, so I'd see her there a lot with that kind of stuff. And
love at first sight type deal?
Well, no, I mean, a little bit. I mean, I thought she was gorgeous. And I remember one time I went to the office because I needed to get some supplies, and I asked for a pencil, and she handed me the pencil, and I thought she's so cute. And anyways, didn't think much of it. But then her younger sister, Jamie, was on the soccer team that I coached.
Okay.
And so Kelly had graduated, and then Jamie, I believe, was a sophomore. And on my soccer team, and she just mentioned out of the blue, I really want to try and set you up with my sister Kelly. And
oof, did your heart just stop when you heard that? Like,
I said, okay, I'm all about that. That'd be great. And obviously it would have been weird had she still. Well, it wouldn't have happened if she had still been in high school. But so she had graduated the year before, and she was just in college and working, and so she set us up, and kind of the rest is history. She didn't make it easy for me, and I probably didn't make it easy for her, but she was an amazing girl to date. She raised, and she still does, she raises me up to a much higher standard.
Yeah.
She's beautiful and gorgeous, not on the outside only, but definitely on the inside, and just has all of her ducks so in a row. Definitely lucky that I got to have her in my life. And
that's amazing.
Awesome. 7 kids.
7 kids.
And
I'll make sure she hears that part too. I'll send that directly to her.
Good times.
So she heard the good stuff. Yeah, Heather loves Kelly. She nothing but good things. And it's always been nothing but good things. It's really about your whole family. And really with your family, one thing that I'm so impressed with is the relationship and the connection that you have with your kids. It just seems like you guys are always having fun. It seems like, I'm sure there's life's not perfect, right? But it seems like you and Kelly have done such a good job to just really teach the true value of family. And we love each other, and we're there for each other, and it shows. What's your guys' secret?
Yeah, I agree. I think a family is everything. There's nothing more important than family and supporting each other and having each other's backs. And I think Kelly fosters that a lot with just her communication, and everything we do together.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly and I don't drive anywhere really by ourselves. We take everybody with us,
Mm-hmm.
much to the chagrin probably of our youngest boy uh, who gets tired of being in on those car rides. But
Yeah.
one of our favorite things to do on a Sunday afternoon is everybody piles in the car and we go get Cokes and some chips, and we take some drives up into the canyons. And we really do enjoy spending time together. Now it's going to be a little bit more difficult because we have three married now,
Mm-hmm.
and so we've got basically four at home. Maisie comes home less than a month from her mission,
Oh,
so
how
she'll be
exciting.
home. So yeah, we're excited for that. But I just think we love spending time together, and we root for each other, and we pray for each other, and it's fun. We have a text group, just for our family, and everybody will kind of put things in there that they've done and accomplished, and something cool comes up, they'll post it there, that funny meme or
Oh, how awesome.
a funny video or something, and sharing success stories I think is critical, and just loving.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm definitely going to take that once my kids get older for phones and create a group message. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah.
How was it when they were younger, though? I mean, you can only do so much, right? In regards to this group message, but when they were younger, did you guys still go on drives? Was that a
Oh
thing
yeah.
you guys have always been doing?
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, we did everything together. Now, one thing that I think was pretty impressive for us and helpful for us was we moved away from Utah.
Oh, okay.
So early on in the business, my business, if you wanted to be a business owner, you had to go take a territory that was not taken already. And so
Mm-hmm.
Utah was taken. We moved to Seattle and lived there for 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Then built that up and replaced myself with other managers that are a part of my business still today. And then moved to Florida, Jacksonville, did the same thing for 3 years, built up the business there, and then Chicago for 6.
Oh, wow.
So as a family, going to all these places, you had to bond. You had to rely on each other, and
Yeah.
took care of each other. And but growing up in we call the mission field, outside of Utah, was awesome for us, just because
Brought you guys
brought
closer.
us closer, had to kind of do things together, and had to kind of focus in that arena. So Kelly's always been mindful of that and has done a great job just loving. She's a very loving person, but I think probably the biggest thing is she's a service oriented person. She just serves others. There's not too many Sundays that go by that she doesn't have somebody that needs some cookies or
She's
needs
there.
a meal, and she puts that stuff together, and the kids see that, and we do those things together. We go deliver these things together, and I think that kind of camaraderie where it's not talk about love, it's do love stuff.
Yeah, actually doing. That's the big thing.
And I
Wow.
think that binds a family together because they see that love and they want those feelings, and that's one part of it. Another part, we're big into sharing, and so maybe it's kind of crazy and kind of weird, but we always just share a Coke. So much to Kelly's chagrin, I'll order a Coke, and then that Coke goes around the table when someone needs a drink. Of course, we all get our water, but I think there's something about just the feeling of just shared comfort and shared love, and I'm not worried about you. You can have a drink of my Coke, I'll have a drink of it after you, and I think maybe somehow that's engendered some tight connections. And I would never have done that growing up. That was the worst thing ever, to think I would drink off of somebody else's Coke. But I think just maybe my just endearing and complete love of Kelly, and having no worry about anything about her, where her and I would always just share everything. We get one meal even today, and we share. If we cut that hamburger in half, we'll eat off the tacos, and always sharing our drinks. I don't know. That's kind of weird that we got in that conversation, but something about that.
No. I love that. Sharing and really just spending time, because you can talk about, oh, this is what our values are, this is what our family does, whether you do it or not, but it really just comes down to actually doing. That's really the secret to life, right? Just actually doing it. It sounds like you had the drive, the energy to do that. Now, one last question that I have for you. We don't have to end, but one question I did want to ask before you left is, if you can give one piece of advice to not only your younger self, but also to maybe future grandkids or even your kids now, what would that be?
Advice to my future self and my grandkids. Probably develop the attitude of grit. Have some grit in your life, grit to stand for what's right, stand for truth and righteousness, stand for, fight for what is right, and develop that grit, that stick to itiveness. Um, just have a little bit of that attitude of if it is to be, it's up to me.
I like that.
And go out there and serve others, but keep fighting to stay on the path, hold to the iron rod, and do those things that will allow you to win in life. Whether that means reading good things, watching good things, being a part of good things, going to church on Sunday. Um, I love the energy that I get from going to church on Sunday. Some people, even if I'm teaching, if it can be hard because if you're having to teach every Sunday, it can wear you out. But it gives me energy, and so somehow, some way, it would be nice if my children and future generations can hold on to that. Although I don't know how many future generations we're going to have before things really get, rock and rolling here,
kind of crazy
in the world, and second coming and whatnot. But I hope a lot of times we've been talking about these end of times things, and I know that Max, my 10-year-old, and Macklin, they get so frustrated when people say, "Oh, the second coming is going to be soon," and they've come to me and to Kelly and says, "Listen, I don't want the second coming to happen so fast. I want to live my life."
They want to live their life.
And
wow, that says a lot.
and that's interesting, but I can understand that they want to live their life. They want to have a full life. They want to have kids. They want to have grandkids, and they want to probably because they've just seen how awesome it can be. Yeah, how awesome it can be, and they want to have that experience too. So, yeah, just do what's right, and keep fighting for good things to happen for you, and good things will happen.
I love that, because really, I mean, what your kids just said is a huge testament to what you guys are building up, and that's just to live your life, live it to the fullest. It's not going to be easy, right? That's why you mentioned, like, have grit, just go after it. But they see that, hey, life can be a beautiful thing if I just work at it, if I just go. They've seen that with you. They've seen examples. I'm sure they've heard stories about your great grandparents and how they built that up. So that's very impressive. I'm really happy you were able to join me in this. Seriously, took a lot of good things away from this. So thanks
for having me.
Yeah, of course.